Okay, we'll call the 10 a.m. meeting to order. There is an agenda before us. Do we have any additions or deletions?
Mr. Chairman, I had a question regarding the agenda, the closed session
Yes.
agenda. It states in the agenda, amongst various other things, that we would be conducting interviews this morning, and I wanted to clarify if that was the case.
I believe it is, yes. I believe that
For which positions?
for clerk of the board.
I'm concerned about going forward with interviews at this point, Mr. Chairman, for this position, simply because I don't, at least personally for myself, I don't believe that there was an awareness made with the entire board that such interviews would be taking place this morning for that position, nor was I made aware of that we had candidates that had been pre-selected that would allow at least for myself an opportunity to review those resumes. I know that the resumes are here, I believe, in front of us, but I would have preferred those resumes to be made available to us beforehand if we are in fact going to interview those candidates this morning. I don't agree with the process.
Supervisor Lee, I'll personally apologize for that. I thought all members of the board were aware, and I thought the resumes were available, but if I...
No, they were. They
well,
were sent out
okay.
to all of us.
Well, either way, it's my goal, yes. If any member feels that they're not as prepared as they could be, we should strive to do better, but I believe that the goal has been to interview for that position. Resumes are available and information was available.
And once again, speaking for myself only, if the remainder of the board is comfortable going through with this process this morning, I of course will go along with the group. But personally, for myself, it was not made clear that for this morning, for the 10 a.m. session, that we would be interviewing prospective candidates for this one particular position. My understanding prior to the meeting was that we would be discussing desired qualities and backgrounds and experiences for the county administrator and for the clerk, and then pursuant to that discussion, we would begin selecting candidates and setting up interviews for both of those positions. But if everybody else is comfortable moving forward, then I will agree to do so as well. But personally, I would prefer in the future that it's crystal clear that for any particular meeting, if we are interviewing candidates for any position at all, that it's crystal clear that is one of the primary purposes of that meeting, and that we are made aware that these are the candidates, these are the resumes, and we are conducting interviews, and these are the questions that we can ask the candidates, because, Mr. Chairman, I don't believe any of that information has been communicated prior to this morning's meeting.
Yes, and so from what I understand, and this may have been my conversation with you last week where we were discussing the county administrator and that we were going to be looking at the qualifications, et cetera. What you're describing there is what I understand we will be doing relative to the county administrator position. But relative to the clerk, I thought we had talked about, and if we didn't, I apologize, the clerk position, needing one more quickly, having candidates that staff thought were qualified, and interviewing them. But if that was lost in translation, it will not be lost in translation next time. I'll try to be clear.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Is there any further discussion, or we have an agenda in front of us? Hearing none, we'll move forward with the agenda as presented. Do we have a motion to enter closed session?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I move that we enter into closed meeting as permitted under Virginia Code Section 2.2-3711A1 to discuss, consider, or interview prospective candidates for employment as clerk to the board and county administrator, assignment, appointment, promotion, performance, demotion, salaries, disciplining or resignation of specific public officers, appointees, or employees of Culpeper County.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, any discussion? We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? We're in closed session. Thank you. All right, we're going to come out of closed session, and we'll begin with the certification. Do members of the board certify to the best of your knowledge that only public business exempted from open meeting requirements and disclosed in the closed session motion were discussed or considered in closed session? Ms. Green?
Yes.
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 Okay, we are out of closed session. Do we have motions?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I move that the HR director be directed to immediately review and compensate all employees who have been appointed by the Board of Supervisors to acting or interim supervisory positions on or after December 2025 in full accordance with the county's personnel management policy governing acting interim appointments, ensuring pay stipends are no less than the minimum of the applicable pay grade or up to 20% of current salary where applicable. I also move that the board appoints,
That's,
oh, I'm sorry. That's the first motion.
thank you, Vice
Sorry.
Chairman. Do we have a second? Second. Okay, a second by Supervisor Lee. Is there further discussion? Okay, all those in favor, well, let's do this by roll call just to be safe. If you- Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Number two, I move that the board appoints Shane McCrum to the position of clerk to the board, effective upon execution of a mutually agreed upon employment contract, and for the HR director to extend a formal letter of employment to Mr. McCrum reflecting the terms as discussed and approved by the board and consistent with the other positions that report directly to the board.
Do we have a second? Second. Second by Mr. Lee, our Supervisor Lee. Do we have further discussion? Supervisor Bates.
Mr. Chairman, based off the candidate and the starting salary for that position, and what was advertised and experience, I'm not going to be able to support the motion. Thank you.
Do we have any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, let's please do a roll call vote again, Ms. Morgan. Aye.
Nay.
The vote is 6-1. Do we have any other discussion or motions? Hearing none, I'd like, I guess, advice from our parliamentarian. Should we adjourn and then go to the work session, or should we continue to the work session?
Are we having the workshop?
The work session begins right now for,
Okay.
yeah.
I think that we should continue and go to, start the
We'll
work
continue into
session.
the work session. So our 1:30 work session. This is a continuation of what we were going to do at our March meeting. The presentation is the same. It was prepared along with our finance director, Valerie Lamb, and she is going to be assisting us through the budget process. Thank you very much. Very much appreciate
Can you make that big?
having the expert pitch hit here. And yes, see you later. That's great.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. So this was the presentation that Mr. McLaren had originally prepared for you to have a couple weeks ago. I have updated it slightly, and hopefully we'll get through this. So as of now, all the departments and constitutional budgets, human services budget, and the outside agencies, all the requests have been reviewed. I believe attached in board docs is a book that has all of the departmental budgets with the county administrator's recommendation next to what the requests were. And I'll try to get some clarification from you all as we go through as to what your next steps you want to have as to balancing the budget and going forward. Not to steal Dr. Brad's thunder, he'll be here at 4:30, but his request is going to be flat for local funding for next year, so that's one good piece of news.
Like that was stealing thunder.
Yeah, I
But
know.
continue.
Sorry, Dr. Brad's. This budget does include, as you know, debt service on the $93 million that was borrowed for CMS and the new elementary school. The debt service payment for this year is $1.2 million more than the debt service payment last year. For 26, all that was included was an interest-only payment, and for 27 will be the first year of principal and interest. And the total debt service for schools for next year is $13.6 million. The draft CIP has been completed, and those projects are funded currently with PAYGO, as we've done historically with CIP projects. And I believe you'll be hearing from the departments in a little bit regarding their requests and what makes up that CIP amount. The total budget currently, as it stands, is about $264 million. And when we strip the capital out, it takes the operating budget down to about $248 million, which includes schools, DHS, and all the county budgets. 15% of that is about $37.3 million. And if you recall, when the auditors came, your audited fund balance is about $50 million. So staying within the 10 to 15% should not be a problem going forward. In the current year, we used a couple places of funding that we had set aside, and some of the recommendations for this year's budget is the same. Some proffer money that has come in, there's currently about $1.16 million set aside in proffer funding that is proposed to go for the schools, the debt service for 27, and there was about $6.1 million initially in set-aside funds. In the current budget, we used about 1.8, and in the upcoming budget for 27, what I had calculated was about 1.3 to come off of that, so that would still leave you about 3.1 in that set-aside money for even subsequent years from 27, if you so desire to use some or all of that for this year. The penny is, as you recall from earlier work sessions, the value of a penny is about $959,000 for this year. And personal property, one of Mr. McLaren's recommendations was to potentially put the personal property tax rate up from $3 to either $3.25 or $3.50. 25 cents on the tax rate would give you almost $2 million, and 50 cents on the tax rate would give you almost $4 million. Just as a reminder, this was a strategy used back in 2007 when the debt service was taken out for Eastern View, and that's where we had gone from $250 to $350 at that time. So here's where I'm asking for guidance from you all to move forward. We've taken $2.5 million out of the initial budget requests. There are about $14.6 million would come from the fund balance for capital and other one-time requests, and that still leaves us with a shortfall of about $6 million. So some of the options to offset that $6 million are to use 1.3 from the set-aside funds, 1.1 of currently reserved proffer funds. You can use more of the fund balance to make up the rest of the $6 million, or if you wanted to consider any type of tax increase either on personal property or real estate.
Sense now maybe to see what the board's thought is along these lines, if any. Like, so what I'm understanding from you is that we're 6 million short.
Yes, sir.
We have a total of reserved education proffer funds and set-aside funds of roughly 2.4 million.
Well, you actually have, so the proffer money is the 1.2. You actually have about 4.4 in set aside. My recommendation or suggestion was to just use 1.2 this year, which would still leave you about 3 million to use in subsequent years. But it's obviously, I'm asking for your guidance here at this point as to how you would like to proceed then.
So, okay, Supervisor Farish.
My thoughts on it are, it shouldn't be the responsibility of the taxpayer to make up the difference for the budget. The county created that position that we're in. The county should be accountable to correct it. All the means you have here, plus pulling from the fund for the balance, that's how I feel about it.
You're saying use set-asides and don't raise taxes?
Correct.
Just for clarification, the line number one, the $1.2 million, that set-aside fund is $4 million?
Yes, sir. We started out with a little more than 6 million. And then for the current year budget, we're using about 1.8 of that 6 point whatever. So there's about 4.4 currently there. My suggestion was just to use the 1.2, leaving still 3 million to use in subsequent years, but that's where I'm asking for guidance from you all.
And so you're saying that those funds are available, that's just a suggestion?
Yes,
At
sir.
this point in time?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman. So I agree and respectfully disagree with Mr. Farish, too. As far as not having the taxpayer make up the difference. So I'm all for using our reserve fund, using the set-aside money, using the proffer fund money that we have. But when we say the county created the deficit, well, we always go through this. We always go through a budget situation during this time of the year. We always move money around to try to balance the budget. In this case, we chose to build schools, which we need, enhance a school, which we need, refurbish a school, which we need, quality of life. And so the debt load is going to be the responsibility of us for the next couple of years until the revenues, more projected revenue starts coming in. So that's the way I look at it. I don't see it as a problem. I see it as a situation to where we have to mitigate for a year or two. We're always over budget by usually a couple $1 million. This time we're 6 million over, but we have 51 million in our reserve fund and another, it sounds like 5 or 6 million in set-aside money. So I think we're doing great. And but I do agree with Mr. Farish that we shouldn't raise the taxes. We lowered the personal property tax on vehicles from $3.50 to $3, which most jurisdictions have a $3.50 range on their tax on their vehicles and personal property. We lowered it, I believe, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, from $3.50 to $3, which is great. It's amazing, in my opinion. Our tax rate is 43 cents now per $100 of assessed value. And as I've said before, when I came on the board 10 years ago, it was 85 cents. So we're always having to, it always fluctuates. I think a couple years ago it was 48 cents, which in this case, it would be almost a difference of $5 million there. But we're choosing not to raise the rate because we don't want to impact the citizens of our community on a tax increase. At least that's where I hope we go today. So I agree with Mr. Farish, and I really don't want to support any tax increase, but to use our reserve funds to make up the difference. Thank you.
Supervisor Brown?
I do have a couple questions. And obviously, the tax rate's based on assessments that have gone up over the last 5 years and all that, so that can all play into that kind of discussion. But what I want to know, you said we have proffers set aside for 3.1.
No, the proffer money that is currently set aside is the 1.162. Then we have additional set-aside money that the county had been accumulating from prior budgets and just setting aside for future capital, and that had accumulated to a little bit more than $6 million. So in the current budget, we had, the board had decided to use 1.8 of that 6.1 to help offset this year's debt service increase.
Okay. So when you, what were you referring to when you said the 3.1
So
proffer set aside money?
if I go, oops, I went back too far.
'Cause I
So
didn't see
currently,
that, but
the
you said
set
it.
aside, we had initially, the second bullet, we had initially had 6.1. In the current year, we used 1.8. So that we're currently at the 4.4. I was suggesting using like 1.3 of the 4.4.
Okay.
But you could use all of the 4.4 this year and not have any additional monies. I was just trying to,
I'm just trying to get an idea of what we actually do have. And
yes, ma'am. So you have the 4.4 right now, and then in
and of the-
proffers, we have the 1,162,000.
Okay. And of the 55, we are allowed without having any kind of ding on the credit, as he had mostly said the other week.
Yes, ma'am. So the.
We have access to how much of that?
So 15% of, 15% of your operating budget.
Because that varied from two different talks.
Yes, so the 15% of the current, of the operating budget, the way it currently stands, is about 37.3 million. And there's about 50.5 million per the audit in your undesignated fund balance.
And he said the 6 million that we were going to be short was going to be based on the interest payment for the schools that didn't get included.
In the current year, yes, ma'am, the budget
Okay.
includes, it's a $6 million interest-only payment. It's a slight increase to next year of a little over $1 million, I believe, that will include the first principal payment and interest payment.
Okay, so it
And
will be
that, all of
principal
that
next year.
debt service payment is included in that $6 million shortfall.
And last year was roughly 5.5, so it's increased to the 6 now. Okay, based on all of those, of the actual numbers that we have access to without dinging our credit, because we obviously cannot afford to have our credit dinged, because if our bond rating goes up, then our interest-only payment goes up, and then that puts us into another operating expense. So I would definitely say let's get that from those funds. We can proportion it to where you're not using all of it from one to the other, but not raise taxes.
The challenge I think we're going to have is even if we took all from the 4.4 and the 1.2, that equals 5.3. We're 6 million short. So even if we used all proportionately, there's still 700,000 gap there. General fund balance? Well, we do have that ability. Now, I also think, though, we're gonna have, uh, Valerie, did you look at if we were to make the changes relative to assessment and land use that we have advertised for public hearing?
No, sir, I have not looked at that. I'm not sure what that implicates. I mean, assumably you would get more real estate in. I just don't.
Okay, well, if you could ask our assessor to try to get us a figure for April,
Sure.
that would be good. I'm thinking that we're gonna have another 200,000 to 300,000 due to an ordinance change that's gonna be recurring revenue that we're going to make in April. So if that takes the 700,000 down to less than 500,000, we may be getting to where we can do this without a tax increase, not comfortably, but without a tax increase, without putting a significant risk to our bond rating. Supervisor?
Mr. Chairman, to be clear, the 4 million set aside to Supervisor Brown, we're using all of that, is that right?
We're doing the math right, with not affecting our bond rating, that gives us about 17 million in the general fund that we could use without the bond rating. Is that, are we doing our math correctly?
Yes, ma'am.
So, no, I wouldn't say strip all of the set aside. I would say take some from both, kind of like what you've recommended. But we definitely, instead of doing the tax, I'd like to tap into that, the balance of the general that we have.
Well, to Chairman Underwood's comment, with additional revenues coming in from changes in land use, he also made the comment earlier that this year's challenging, but next year is even going to be a greater challenge. And to Supervisor Farish's comment that the county created this, the county is growing by gangbusters. And what time I spent with the joint CIP with the school.
Well, let me
Well,
stop
can
you
I
there.
finish, sir?
I made
can
a mistake. I should not have said in that manner.
Well, I mean, just let me, and I'm not disputing, we are where we are. There's no disputing where we are. But the studies that our school staff, our school board has done, it's phenomenal. And we are in a situation with this growth that we are very well going to be looking at elementary school number 8, I believe, within the next 12 to 24 months. And to Supervisor Deal's comment about taking the personal property tax from 350 to 300, that was put in place when COVID hit, and the NADA values on all used cars had gone through the roof. And the state legislator said, okay, we can have you can pull that out and you can lower those rates to give relief to the working man, on his car value. Well, here we are now, back 6 years later, and we're no longer in that pandemic era with the NADA values. And I agree, I hate paying taxes and I don't want to raise taxes, but I really don't think it's a good idea to make your monthly bills, if you would, in a family setting. If you're taking it out of your savings account, you need to be able to live within your means, which we have done by taking $2.5 million out of our budget. We really need to think long and hard about how much money we're going to be taking out of the general fund. And the reason I say that, there's a lot of stuff that's coming, that's unknown right now when it comes to some of our fire and rescue stations. There's always something that pops up, and I get it. $51 million, we should have 37. That's a little steep, but I don't want to get in a situation that when we have a crisis arrives, that we don't have the monies, and if we have to pull the money out of the general fund, now we're putting the county in a precarious situation where our bond rating is affected. So that's my 2 cents.
I agree with that 100%. What would you recommend?
Well,
Can
the
I piggyback
Yes,
on it
sir.
first? Don't lose your train of thought. So, from my perspective is, the revenue that we're going to have coming in, I think it's going to start maybe sometimes next year, but it's going to be within 2 years probably, once Amazon is up and running. We see Amazon, and Brian back there can correct me if I'm wrong, but when we see those two buildings coming on, and the personal property equipment, and the tax rate that they're going to generate to us from a tax revenue standpoint, I would think should equal what our one data center has now coming in, although it's going to be gradual. And, it may go from $2 million a year coming in maybe in 2 years or in 2027, it may fluctuate and go to 5 million, it may go to 10. It depends on how much personal property equipment is generated by the data centers out there. I mean, it could be in 3 to 5 years, it could be $8 million a year of extra additional revenue coming in. It could be 15 million. We just don't know. Brian, am I correct when I say that? Just shake your head, yes or no, please. Am I close?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
There's more to it.
It's more to it, much more to it. So we see, whether you're for data centers, whether you're for technology, or whether you're not, or if you're not, we have planned over the last 5 or 6 years to get our tech zone up and running, which we have users now that are in place to come in there and build their shells. The developers build the shells, and then they lease out the space to the users. So you see what's going on with Data Bank at the corner of Route 3 and 29. Going to be several buildings there. You see them clearing across from Swift on Route 3. You see that complex getting ready to start. And there's another complex that's getting ready to start on Niles Mill Road. So what that means is, in all likelihood, and I'm 90% sure that we're going to have so much money coming in the next 3 to 5, 8 years until we're not really going to have to worry about our credit rating, to be honest, which is a good thing. I'm not bragging on that. It's just a good thing. And if we get a comparable tax revenue coming in like the current data center we have, and it's public knowledge, I think I can state what revenue is coming in for the data center that we have now that's down on McDevitt Drive. I think 6 years ago, it was about $3.5 million. And first, let me give you a comp. A comp would be Tevis, Continental Tevis. When they were up and operating, that was our biggest manufacturing company in Culpeper. That was bringing in about $900,000 per year in tax revenue. Well, our data center that we have now on McDevitt Drive, we only have one. 6 years ago, it was bringing in, I think, about $3.5 million. 4 years ago, it was bringing in $6 million. 2 years ago, it was bringing in $9 million. And now, currently, it's bringing in $11.1 million. So if you can picture Amazon being up and running, that's one data center, that's one building. If you can picture Amazon being up and operating in the next 2 years, fully, 2 to 3 years, if you can picture Data Bank on the corner there of Route 3 and 29 being up and running, and then it's the Peterson, I forget what the name of it is. What is it, Brian? Stack, right, Stack, across from Swift, up and running, and then EdgeCore on Niles Mill. That's a lot of buildings. And we have one that's bringing in what I just said, $11.1 million. So if they're up and running in the next 3 to 5 years, I think Culpeper is going to be in very, very good shape. And I just want to throw that out there as a comp and try to give some information that I think is very positive.
Now, Valerie, again, back to our credit rating. If we were to use, say, $4 million out of our general fund, our credit rating would remain the same because we are not damaging it by taking an excessive amount out of, below that 37.
So
correct?
I did the calculation, just pulling the 14.6 million out, which would be our normal process for what's in capital, our CIP, and any other one-time things, it has our percentage at 14.53. If we pull an additional 3.6 out, which would be the difference needed from the 1.2 and the 1.1, that takes us down to 13.07. Now, in the current year, you all have made a couple of pulls from the fund balance, so when I take those into account as well, then we're down to 11.07. So you're in that 10 to 15% range. You're not below 10%, so.
So if we take 4 to satisfy this out of the general fund, we would not be impacting our rating.
No, ma'am. I mean, you'd
Okay.
still be within your policy.
That's what I want to make sure.
And one caveat you could potentially make is that when data center revenue does start coming in, then you would replenish your fund balance based on those additional revenues coming back in. That's my suggestion.
I could also support that. I think we could use a portion of the set-aside funds. I'd be okay with using all of them. We could use a portion of the general fund to the extent where it doesn't impact our bond rating. And also, as Mr. Underwood, or Chairman Underwood said, we also have the potential for more revenue between now and then, which could lessen the impact on the general fund. So I think it's important that if the money is there, we don't ask more of the taxpayer. So that way, I'm not for increasing taxes within this year. And I think we do everything we can. Like I said, if the money's there, we don't ask for more. So
I'll agree with that. I just don't think it's a good habit, year after year, that we start pulling out of the general fund. And I hope that Mr. Deal is correct, but when it comes to and I'm not being a pessimist, I'm more of a realist, that the way the state legislature works, that when we start giving exemptions to certain industries that don't have to pay taxes for data storage, that could be, there's other counties north of us that have ran into that, and it's a severe impact on your budget. So I always want to kind of be on the conservative side here and plan where we are today, not being speculative of what's coming in tomorrow. But as for what's being proposed here today, and providing it is not going to throw us under our stated threshold for a bond rating, I too can support this motion.
It would definitely keep you within your policy, but yes, the bond raters will look at it unfavorably if it becomes a recurring thing to draw out of the fund balance for operations. They look at it favorably to use it for capital, but not for operations, so.
Okay, sitting in for the chairman. Do we need a motion or anything, Ms. Wilson, or not on this?
Are you requesting a motion?
Valerie?
No, I'm just requesting guidance, and I believe I've received some, so I will get with Mr. Kilby and see what impact the change in the land use policy will have, and then go based off what you all have suggested to have an ad ready for your April board meeting.
Okay. All right, any other comments? Okay. Entertain a motion to adjourn. Have anything else? Oh, we have a CIP to go? I thought that was, okay. All right. It's not on. Okay. Valerie, are you going to take a lead for that? Oh, Denise? Okay.
Good afternoon. This is a CIP presentation that was given to the Planning Commission. And as part of the introduction, we thought it'd be a good idea as a refresher to go through what is in your CIP, what the function is of it for both the community and for the Board of Supervisors. But per state code, the Planning Commission reviews your draft capital improvement program to make sure that it's in conformance with the comp plan. They did this last month and have forwarded it to you. The CIP does take a 5-year horizon, and the reason it does this is it's good for your long-term planning of projects that you might need in your budget as you're moving forward. So if you know that you're going to need a new roof on some building, you know that you want to plan for it and have that in the out years. It's also important to have it in your CIP for things like grants and proffers in your out years. If you have a rezoning coming before you or a potential grant, normally they will ask if it's listed in your CIP. And what this results in sometimes is very high numbers for your 5-year plans. But it is important to keep in mind that what you are only budgeting for is what is listed in fiscal year 27. So right now, for your overview, the project requests are listed in your draft CIP. And again, fiscal year 27 is only what's in this upcoming budget. But if you include all the way out, you're looking at just under $300,000. And again, this doesn't mean that you need to be funding those within the next 5 years. Some of these are items that can stay in the out years, but you want them in your CIP if you should need to have them for potential rezonings. So this afternoon, what you have in front of you is all of your department heads who are going to walk you through briefly what their CIP requests are. And this is the presentation that was given to the Planning Commission, except for the schools presentation. That's been removed from this one because Dr. Brads is here to present to you during his specific work session. So with that, I am going to turn it over to Ms. Tanya Woodward to give you the airport one. And the template here, just so you're aware, she's coming up. And Tanya, if you would like this. Each department is following basically the same template, which gives you the overall request for the 5 years, and then specifically what is requested in fiscal year 27. And then if there are any new projects that were included in this year's CIP that you haven't seen in previous CIPs.
15. That's for the construction part of it. So then taxiway pavement rehab design. The last time that we did our pavement, we lengthened the runway by 1,000 feet, widened it to 100 feet, and of course did our full parallel taxiway lengthening as well. I was actually pregnant with my daughter. She's 21 this year, and we've done no additional work other than some crack sealing and some restriping on the taxiway and runway. So the Department of Aviation did a pavement management study, and it showed that it is time to do a resurfacing on that. So we do design work, then we do the actual construction of the resurfacing. The FAA does not have the money to do all of that in one fell swoop. That's why we have it separated by taxiway and runway. And we will be adding LED lighting with both of those projects as well. And then you'll see out in the further years is the runway work, which is very costly. And that, again, is just a rehab. And then lighting, obviously, to go along with that. Avgas fuel truck in FY28, that is all local funds. There is no Department of Aviation or FAA funding for that. And FY29, then you can see the actual construction of the taxiway pavement and lighting, the actual construction of that. Northeast apron expansion design, and then construction. And that kind of takes us out. We didn't have anything planned directly for 31, other than some T-hanger repairs, again, which is local money only. That would be the last of the roof membranes for the vintage hangers. Any questions?
I do have one.
Yeah.
Tanya, I had read or heard, was there a grant or something for a fuel truck? A fuel truck had come up in a conversation here recently, and I can't remember.
We were hoping that what used to be the bill money, which is infrastructure money that came down from the FAA, we were hoping that that would be allotted for a fuel truck, but it was not.
It was not, okay. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. And ours is approaching its 20th year. It'll be 20 in 2027. And next week, actually, we get a visit from AvFuel, which is our branded fuel dealer. They come out annually or biannually, whichever that they can work it in. They go over all of our stuff. They go over the fuel farm, the trucks, all of our paperwork. So we're kind of getting a little inspection next week for that. And they enlighten us on any changes that are coming down the pike. We got when we got the quote, that was for what's on the street today. So hopefully I'll be able to update that, after they come out. They may tell us that there's additional stuff coming down the pike that we need to have on it.
Okay. Any other comments? Questions? Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Howard.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Vice Chairman, this is an overview of the Buildings and Grounds CIP, and I'm just going to go over the funding requests that we have before us for FY27. We do not have any new projects, but the funding request for this year is for $65,000 to replace a portion of the roof on this building. That's basically over the reception area where you saw the funnels the other day. $250,000 for continued discussion of the courthouse expansion, what happens there, whether we go to referendum or build it in the county or continue where we are. And then $100,000 for additional office space. We don't have that designator right now. That comes in handy each year as things happen. For example, last year we used that money to build 2 new offices for constitutionals that had positions approved that were not included in the budget that needed an office. So we built offices in their existing spaces with those. And we also built some space down for a GIS coordinator. There's some discussion about moving the registrar, things like that. That could help with either some study money or temporary lease to get you through a year. So we don't have a designated use, but that's what that money is used for each year as office needs come up. And that's the request for this year. All the other projects have been in the CIP and are continued funded out for other years, and I'm happy to answer any questions about any of those if anybody has any.
Any questions for Mr. Howard?
One question. The ballards and the jersey walls and those kind of things that are coming through the orders where do those fall into this category?
Those are not coming out of the CIP. Those are coming out of the operating costs of maintaining the courthouse, so they're not included in the CIP.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Thank you, Mr. Howard.
Thank you. Who's next? Oops. Information technology?
Public Works.
Oh, landfill. That's me, but there are no new requests for landfill.
Library.
Library.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm standing in for the library director, Brian McCormick, who is out of office at the moment. But my name is Andrew DiNicola. I'm the assistant director at the Culpeper County Library. The major thing that we actually have going on for any sort of capital improvement for fiscal year 27 is mainly the fire protection system, which is original to the library when it was built in 1998. Therefore, working with environmental services, they are recommending that we replace all the sprinkler systems. And I don't think anybody wants to see a whole library of books going up in smoke. The other major things that we actually do have going on, especially since we do have some general funds available, we are looking at making sure that our children's department is renewed, and that is actually coming through funds, grants, and fundraising through the nonprofit 501c3, the Library Foundation. The library renovation coming up in fiscal year 30. The front lobby is in need of a little bit of repairs, ceiling tiles, ADA accessibility, and the like. And hopefully within the next 5 years or so, we will start seeing any sort of improvement up in the northern part of the county to be able to build a new library branch. That's it. Any questions?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Hello. Each year we put into the CIP $100,000 for grant matching funds to be utilized in instances where grant opportunities request cash match. It varies by opportunity. Sometimes it's 10, 20%. As you can see, we have had years where we haven't needed to utilize all of those funds, and that's why we have a healthy balance in that category. That's sort of a savings account, if you will, so we don't have to ask for funds from the general revenue if we have a larger opportunity that might avail itself to us. We would look first to this opportunity. And you mentioned, Mr. Bates, that recently hearing about the fuel truck. I often use the CIP in total to inform what grants I'm pursuing. And we did come forward with community project funding that would support the purchase of that fuel truck. We did also propose potentially helping the library with their renovations and the elevator at Carver. So again, those are good examples of how the CIP informs grants that we pursue. Any questions?
Thank you, Laura.
Sure.
Parks and Rec.
I'm on the clock. Ms. Denise claims I only have 3 minutes to get through this presentation here today. Vice Chairman Deal, members of the board. This probably is the easiest CIP presentation I'll ever provide. There is a difference. If you go back to your original sheet, it showed a 0 balance for FY27. However, this document here specifically shows $479,000 for Mountain Run Lake Park and parking lot projects for non-permeous pavers. The goal with that amount was to use savings from existing projects if they were to be available to populate that individual line. The significance of it specifically is for the Mountain Run Lake Park improvements with parking lots. Friends of the Rappahannock secured funds through grant sources to install non-pervious pavers on that property, and with these funds, if they were to become available, we would partner with them to increase the infrastructure. Looking forward, a real quick glance from FY27 to FY31. Again, if available, the $479 for parking lots at Mountain Run Lake Park. FY28, $1.95. And part of looking to the future, the department is looking at engaging, especially in the northern end of the community, a planning and design package for Clevenger's Corner. We talked the last time that I was up here, there is property that's coming forward because of the development up there. But really getting into that community and finding out what we can do with that acreage to better serve the northern end of the community. Park signage, if you go around, look at any of our properties, Lynn Park, Mountain Run Lake Park, we do not have a consistent brand. Most don't even have signs at all, specifically Mountain Run Lake Park there. And then our other signs are dilapidated and need to be completely refreshed. The sports complex fencing and backstop, that was originally within this year's budget, and we did push that to an outlying year. That will be an item that we will have to get on the radar sooner as opposed to later, because anybody that happens to come to the sports complex, it is a safety item that we would need to address. And then other items per the conceptual plan that the Parks and Rec Advisory Committee designed, looking at Mountain Run Lake Park Dog Park, tennis courts, and then the highly used Lynn Park, looking at getting permanent restroom facilities at that site, primarily because with the playgrounds, the shelter, and the 2 softball fields, that is most likely our second most used property outside of the sports complex. In FY29, again, looking at a planning and design feasibility study, we've talked with Brian McCormick with the library that one of the things we are looking at exploring within that design is a joint facility, maybe to the northern end, that partners the Parks and Rec Department with the library to do a joint purpose with that, and we'll have conversations with them as that process goes forward. The additional lighting on the 2 remaining soccer fields at the complex, and then additional ADA trail paving projects at Mountain Run Lake Park, Spillman, and the complex. And then the big one here that we would like to look at an outlying year is the development of an inclusive playground at Lynn Park. That property currently has 2 playgrounds, one on the lower end that because of the water table, the pieces are starting to rust underneath of the surface. Now with this one, we'll work with Miss Laura Loveday and various community partners to do match funding for it, whether it's ARC and other agencies. But that could be an absolutely outstanding addition to Lynn Park and that property. And then getting to FY30, additions of a splash pad at Mountain Run Lake Park, paving the parking lot at Spillman, anybody that's been past Colvin, that place on the weekends with the disc golf course and the multi-use athletic field and the shelter. We expanded the gravel lot last year, but improving the infrastructure will be critical moving forward. And then turning our attention south to Kirkpatrick Park, which the department currently has in its land bank, and getting in a park amenity within that area, in that community. And then getting to FY31, That's when we look at taking the information from the feasibility study and doing the field house or a facility expansion potentially with the library, looking at the inclusive playground at Mountain Run Lake Park, and then continuing to develop Kirkpatrick Park with parking lights and then event lights for safety reasons. So at that time, I'll take any questions y'all might have. All right. Thank you, guys. Mr. Bill Luton.
I believe that you have seen a portion of this presentation previously, but Mr. Junior Perryman is here to walk you through any questions you might have still.
Good afternoon, everyone. For the Fire and Rescue Association, off to a great start. Some of our capital, I'm not nervous, just asking for money. Our Emergency Services, Fire and Rescue Association, we're looking at some increases. The $3.2 million you see up there is for an Air Pack SCBA refresh. They expire after 15 years. They're coming due in the first quarter of 28. It takes about 6 months to get them, so we'll need to at least purchase them in FY '27. That's going to be about a $3.2 million expense. That's countywide, and that also includes the emergency services that Director Uten manages, so we're including those. The $4 million is for a burn building that we're trying to get started here in Culpeper, a training facility. That's the most critical piece that we're asking for. 5 years ago, I came before the Planning Commission and the board sharing basically that same number. It may be a little bit more, closer to 5. We're looking at grant opportunities through VDFP, but they max out at $500,000. The property is available for us. There's about 20-acre parcel that we've worked with the schools to set aside for us to build a training facility. The first phase would be the burn building. The $10 million is for infrastructure. Again, our fire department, the Culpeper Fire Department is not in the best place. Parking's horrible. The bit trucks are getting bigger and heavier. And the real bad news is that we found cracks in our floor. We're getting a structural engineer to come in and assess this building. We're not sure if we're going to be able to park our ladder truck back inside. That's 78,000 pounds on the second floor. So again, our infrastructure countywide needs some work. Company one, building replacement. Company Brandy Station's good. Richardsville, there's asbestos in that building. It's antiquated. It needs to be upgraded. 8, Salem's in a good spot. 9 is in a good spot. However, we would like to see mortgages paid off for Salem and 8. The volunteers are still, through the help of the county, footing the bill for mortgages. $2 million will pay these off. If not, we continue to spend our capital improvement monies on mortgages, which is delaying the ability to purchase fire trucks and ambulances and the equipment to go on it. Those 2 departments have the oldest fleets and the highest maintenance cost in the county because we're putting money into the building, which isn't running calls. So that $10 million is just a start. So I finished with 9. 10 also needs some building enhancements. And 11, which is Culpeper Rescue, is in okay shape. And Company 16's and Riva is in good shape. Infrastructure-wise, that's where we are. We're certainly going to need an investment from the county. The volunteers cannot build the buildings we did back in the 60s and 70s. We don't have those skill sets in our midst anymore to actually do those kind of things, so it comes at a cost. And I believe that highlights, and this is just a slide on the air packs and what they cost. The note at the bottom, we bought 113 packs in 2013. They were 690,000. Now they're about 3.1 million. Here's the burn building to the left. That's the most critical piece of property. Right now, we're sending about $3 million of assets to Louisa 4 and 5 times a year to do our practical trainings and testing. The building in the middle is going to be a classrooms used for an all-purpose public safety building, law enforcement, fire, EMS. And the final build-out of the property is over to the right, but again, that's probably more of a 20-year build-out. And I've already talked about what we're seeing here. Our trucks are aging. About 45% of our trucks are beyond a 20-year mark. So again, our guidelines say 20 years, NFPA says 20 years. Career departments, depending on how busy they are, it's 12 years is the life cycle for pumpers and ladder trucks. So we're extending ours to 20. And again, I believe that's all I have. Any questions? Off Poor Farm Road, next to the new elementary school. It's county-owned.
Yes. Thank you. Oh, yes, sorry, Supervisor.
Well, just a real quick plug, I just want to throw out there that in collaboration with CTEC and the fire and EMS training that we have at that school, the next logical step forward would be with this burn building, because the number of firefighter 1 graduates we're getting out of CTEC, granted, they may go off to other counties as a career firefighter once they graduate, but most of them that are living in Culpeper, where do they volunteer? Here in Culpeper. So I think that's a great next step. Thank you to all, you and all the volunteers for all you do, and I'm hoping we can stick to this and get this accomplished. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is it super? Yes. Thank you, Director.
Real quick, we'll back up to just that one section. Let me see here. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen. Real quick, just a real quick blurb on the $50,000. You'll see in here in the line items under FY27, that is specific to my department, $50,000 to replace video laryngoscope blades. Gave this presentation just real quickly to the Planning Commission. Video laryngoscope blades are what our medics use out in the field to take someone's airway and control their airway when they stop breathing. It's a piece of equipment that we use to actually intubate. I'm sure you've heard that phrase before. We intubate them in the field and take it. Last year, the video laryngoscope blades we've had for years were discontinued. There was a recall on them. So we've been investing in throwaway or disposable video laryngoscope blades. Our medical director has not been very pleased with that. He has encouraged us to please move forward with going to a completely new video laryngoscope blade replacement program. That program is what I put in for our department for the $50,000. That would outfit every single one of our units, including our response units, with the video laryngoscope blades that he wants. These particular models also have the ability to record, which is something that he wants for QA, QI. So that is what that little section in there, I just wanted to be clear about that. So if you have any questions about that at all, I'd be happy to answer them. No? All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This next request is in regards to our roads. And we have a placeholder in our fiscal years for any grants that we are pursuing with VDOT. If you recall, we've had this conversation in some previous committee meetings and last Board of Supervisors meeting that transportation funding takes many years out. And we are currently in the Smart Scale application process, which is 100% funded. However, next year we'll be looking at the revenue sharing process, which is a lot less competitive, and it requires a match from the local jurisdictions. In previous years, the county has pursued matches through the revenue sharing program that are now able to come forward in fiscal year '27, if you don't mind. Thank you. And you were awarded VDOT revenue sharing grants for Riva Road and for White Shop improvements there. And then we also have in front of the VDOT and future CTB meetings coming up this spring, additional revenue sharing grants for Riva Road, White Shop, and including Stevensburg. It does appear at this time that the county is likely to be successful with those. And with that, we may have the opportunity to move those projects up in terms of how soon they are employed. If you want to go to the next one. Additionally, there is every year a $300,000 that is placed into the CIP for any transportation design and engineering that the county would like to move forward as a priority that may or may not be related to a grant program. So again, the new projects proposed are the ones that have been applied for in the revenue sharing grants in the last cycle and will be moving forward to CTB approval in their June meeting. Any questions?
Mr. Chairman, brief overview of the water and sewer CIP. We have one funding request this year, and that would bring us to full funding to wash out, inspect, and repaint portions of the elevated tank up at Clevenger's. We had an ROV in that tank last year, and there's some rust spots inside that tank that was built back in 2008. So this would be a what you call like a patch job for paint to eliminate any rust that's in there for now and push out the full painting till 2030 or 2031. But that would bring us to full funding to implement that project in '27. And then we have additional funding requests out in '28 for the Cherry Hill water line project, which you see there for $2 million to go around the landfill. Any other questions?
Questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you. I think that's it.
All right. So I guess for Director Lamb, what are our next steps? Where do we go from here?
In the land use and see if there's any additional revenue to include in the FY '27 budget. And I think I've gotten some direction from you all as to how you wish to proceed with using the set-aside money and the proffers and the fund balance to balance the budget otherwise.
And then we will discuss at our April meeting what rate to advertise or what rates.
Yes, sir, I will have an ad ready for you.
And I know that, at least what I've heard, the preference may be for flat, but would it also make sense to prepare what it would look like if we did increase real estate 1 cent just in case we need? I mean, it would, to have something here, we may advertise flat or we may advertise higher, but would it make sense to be prepared if something goes wrong if we needed to advertise 1 cent higher? Or are we just saying we're flat no matter what?
That's what we've done it in the past, isn't it?
Yes.
We advertise, you can come down, you just can't go up. So
Exactly.
it would be wise to advertise whatever the consensus of the board is.
I would like to be prepared so we could
I
have that
agree.
conversation to advertise 1 cent up also, just in case.
Okay.
Because when you do all the ins and outs of the reserve and what we're looking at, we may choose differently, but let's at least have something to discuss.
Okay.
Anything else? If not, I guess should we continue again and see everyone here at 4:30 for schools? Does that work with you, Dr. Brett? All right. We'll continue till 4:30. Okay, we'll continue the work session at 4:30. We have Dr. Brad's and Culpeper County Public Schools schedule. Dr. Brad's.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Ms. Wilson. Thank you for this opportunity to present the school board budget spending plan for FY27. Before I get started, just a few things. I want to say a big thank you to both Ms. Harris and Ms. Lamb for the communication that we had in the process. County staff is always instrumental for us in preparing this budget. Also, our school board, many members are here this afternoon. I appreciate them and their effort in our numerous work sessions to work on this process, which, by the way, began in October this year as we started a new process using OpenGov. You may have heard of it. So we did our budget in that. So that went pretty well, frankly, with our department heads and our administrators putting in budget requests in that process for us to get an early start on vetting what their requests were. And I would also want to give a special thank you to our Office of Budget and Finance, particularly led by Mr. Neil Dean and his excellent crew in terms of helping putting this information together. So thank you for that. So tiny bit of school budget 101. We are required by law to submit to the governing body a budget, a plan of spending before April 1st. That's not an April Fool's joke. And we are supposed to do that, even when the General Assembly adjourns and does not have a budget. So that's what we're working with, no budget. So how do we do this, right? How does this happen? It's not a new process for us, but we take the governor's budget that's introduced, the outgoing governor submitted the biennial budget, in this case, the 2-year spending plan, which includes re-benchmarking, enrollment adjustments, all kinds of things. That goes to a new General Assembly. And then they work on the budget. You get a House version, you get a Senate version, you get the governor's version, and somewhere we try to hit the target of what is most likely going to happen. And I'll expand on why we landed on what we landed on shortly, but that just wanted to remind you that both of us, we do not have a state budget yet. My contacts are saying the 22nd or 23rd is reconvened veto session, but it probably be until May in terms of when there may be a special session for the budget. That's what I'm hearing. If you hear something before May, please share it with us. But regardless, we have to submit our best estimate at a spending plan for the coming fiscal year. So having said that, let's see here. I want this one? Yes, that's it. Don't panic, but I'm going to begin with the end in mind. Because, like all good students, you all read to the end to see what's happening here today, right? I see the nods, okay. Okay, this is not exactly the bitter end, but near the end. And I want to show this because it's very important. Because the school board and administrative team very much recognize a few things. One, the support, tremendous support Board of Supervisors gives us with respect to our capital projects. And we know you've got some debt service items. We're aware of that. We're fully leveraging what we think the state budget's going to be. And we also know that if we can survive all of our budget requests this year at a level funding level, that would be beneficial for us and for you going forward, but with the caveat of, if I am standing here next year, which by the way would be year 12, this is year 11, I think that's a good thing, but I hope you think that's also a good thing for consistency. But on that screen, I do want to show you that in recent years, our asks of the county have been less than inflation. So we do a very good job, I would say, with respect to managing taxpayer money. The 2/3 of what we receive, what we operate on, is state funded. Very small sliver, less than 5%, is from the federal government, and the rest of it, about almost a third, is from the county, 20-some percent, 20 high, 28, 29. So, but I wanted to share this just because it's frames and couches how we did this and why we're doing this. So I want to click over to this. How are we doing this? And I'll go back to the beginning on the state revenue. But if you look at the proposed revenues for this FY27 spending plan, you'll see the first category there is the state is up to $87 million. I'm just going to round here and just say these numbers. That is up over FY26 by 6.6%. That is a significant increase because re-benchmarking, a new 2-year budget, from the state was very good to Culpeper County Public Schools. We did not change dramatically with our LCI, our local composite index. Went down just a smidge, and I would say a smidge, 1/10,000th. We went from 3617 to 3616, so that's just barely a change at all. In a rebenchmarking process, always, every time, every 2-year cycle, you have major winners and major losers at rebenchmarking time, meaning composite index change significantly, so that puts a lot more pressure on localities, or the opposite, the locality, the school division receives a great deal of increase from the state based on that composite index. So I wanted to show you that because it shows the school operating fund at 128 million, that's what that number represents, it's in thousands there, represents a 3% increase. So we're slightly above inflation year over year for their overall budget, which we think is that is very respectable for what we would like to do going forward. So having said that, let me go back, because I know you looked at that. It's all good. And talk a little bit about, there's our agenda for today. I won't go over that with you. So the big driver is the state budget. I mentioned the rebenchmark, the biennial budget being a rebenchmark budget. Across the Commonwealth, enrollments were adjusted. In terms of the ADM estimate from the state, we're using their ADM estimate. There's our composite index. We do not have a calc tool. A calculation tool is an instrument that the state, the Virginia Department of Education, Finance Department will put out to say this is how you're going to get your money, the categories based on enrollment, based on categorical funding, all these kinds of things. You typically get that when you have a budget. We have that with the FY26 caboose bill and FY26 caboose bill. The ending of the 2-year budget cycle, the outgoing governor presents a caboose budget, and that gens up or gens down what the state, what the Commonwealth may think they have as we finish the spending year that we're in now. So we'll talk about that briefly in terms of FY26, that what we're not going to do, and explain why on that. So based on that no calculation tool, how in the world do we get this number of $87 million? The Senate Finance does put out what they call distribution sheets. And these distribution sheets, based on that information, this is their exposure on the K-12 side. This is what they think they would allocate to Culpeper County Public Schools. So that number is a valid number. We didn't make that number up. We're using that number because that number is a higher number than the governor's budget, which is typically what happens. The governor's proposal is usually tweaked to do a bit better than the House or Senate, take your pick. In this case, though, in this year, the governor's budget was very good to us. It was $4 million plus. That was our starting point. But as information came in, we saw what was out there and looked at what the House budget had. It came out first. And I will say the House budget was way out there. I do I guess it's the Goldilocks, is this right? The three bears. Yeah, Goldilocks. Too hot, too cold, just right. We think this is just right because the proposal from the House that we do not think will fly includes $400 million, not for us, $400 million across the Commonwealth, one-time money to use at your discretion without being defined. We always go, what? That's a little bit risky and skeptical. If some of that were to happen, we would come back and revisit and say, hey, we may have to change the appropriation to use additional state money based on what happens at the end, but we would want to treat that as a grant fund, and Ms. Lamb knows what I mean by that. We would grant fund it and spend it down versus put it into operating budget because it's intended to be one time. The General Assembly likes doing one-time things, thinking that's going to be a good thing for them, but it's often complicated for us on, downrange. It's very complicated sometimes. So we're using this as a very educated estimate of increased revenue. This is the number that I showed you on that slide that showed the 6.6% increase. So that's what that represents. What does this represent? It's in our slide deck because the caboose bill, and this has been signed by the governor. It's an adjustment from the governor's spending plan, FY25, FY26, previous governor. New governor, General Assembly has tackled this and said, well, wait a minute, we're going to tweak what the governor had in there in the caboose bill, the final piece of FY26, And we're going to do this because we feel pretty good about a chunk of money we want to throw at the school divisions. There it is. They want to throw to us exactly that amount of $894,000 for the purpose of giving a $1,500 bonus that we have to verify per person that we give a $1,500 bonus. The math is correct on the screen. For us to take the money, we need to effectively have new local funding to the tune of just over $1 million. Our school board, our staff said, no, that's a bridge too far. Thank you, but it would be money, you could say, yep, we'll leave the money on the table, but we don't think it's good business or good anything to take money off the table that's going to cost us more to take it. And so that's why if you hear and see about a $1,500 bonus, Culpeper County Public Schools will not participate. That will not be in the FY26 funding. The caveat is to try to make it more attractive is, well, if it's too difficult and or I'll use this word crazy to do it right now in this budget year before June 30, you can do it in FY27. Still the same problem. Still need to match. So we're not going to seek this funding amount for the purpose of this bonus. We would rather stay with the numbers that are in the Senate version, hoping that's what stays. So moving forward, and please, anytime you have a question per the chairman, anytime. I saw on the screen said discussion and questions at the end. Please ask me on the fly is probably better. Anytime. Good, sir? Okay. Quick offset here. We share our insurance plan together. Self-funded plan does really well. And we had no increase year before last. We had a decrease last year, and then 8.8% this year. So that's a pretty good 3-year track record on our premium rates. So with utilization, doing a good job, kicking in a few things with wellness, so we're pleased with that. Offsetting, we do have a decrease, as does the county, with respect to VRS rates. They are effectively washing. So neutral, increase to health insurance on the employer side, increase to VRS on the, decrease to VRS on the employer side. Example, salaries go up. The required or skin in the game for our employees that have to pay 5% into VRS, that will stay the same. This is the employer rate that has been dropped down, but it's a wash here. So one of the biggest things that we do, and is our teaching staff, and with respect to that, that's where we want to try our very best to be as competitive as possible. And when it comes to that fact, you can see there on the screen, we've changed this up a little bit because we've had a number of school divisions there before, and we got to looking hard at that, and it was like, well, we never really have any more than 2 people go to one place. So more than 2 people go to Fairfax, 1. So we said, well, let's just do this simply. So what you see on the screen are just the contiguous counties, school divisions to us. So you look at it similarly with tax rate. We're looking at it similarly with respect to our teacher pay at beginning, midpoint, and end. So that's where we are. In this year, this is where we rank pretty good. Obviously, we don't know what next year would be, but based on what we're proposing, hopefully we hold serve with what we're proposing. Other folks may make ground, but again, we don't know what they're going to try to do at this point. So that's why that looks a little different and using those salary comparisons year over year. So speaking of salary comparisons, in the Senate version of the budget to get the 5.7 million addition, the Senate is recommending a 3% salary increase. So what you see in this column would be what it would take for us to do a 3% salary increase for our approximately 1,200 employees. That's what it would look like. The teacher scale, which I'll show you in just a second, would be increase the scale itself, call that a COLA if you want to, and then the step involved in terms of the years of experience. So that will range from just over 3% to, and I'll show you in just a second. So that will be absolute minimum of just over a minimum of 3% to about 3.8%. I'll show that in a second. Administrative, certified, and open ranges. We have jobs that have a middle and an end open range. That would be a 3% increase. We have a handful of scales of classified employees, our bus drivers, our custodians, paraeducators, et cetera. They are on step scales, so we would move the scale accordingly, and the step is either 1.5 or 1.6%. So they would see a minimum of 3% increase as well, so across the board. We do add this last one here because our stipends, our categorical stipends, typically, for example, our coaches' stipends, and I would say our formula is very competitive with how we pay our coaches, and we use the base teacher pay for that. So necessarily, if you move the base teacher pay, you're going to move up the stipend, so that's how that works. So I'm sorry that's not showing on the bottom there. You want to go into present mode, maybe? Right there. I just now noticed that. My bad, because I'm on the bottom. Hey, there we go. Thank you. My fault. There you go. That's 3.1 to do that. Thinking about what the state has. Okay, that is what the teacher scale would look like in terms of doing 2.2%. You see on the right. You're right. Yes, and the step increase and how that would graduate over. You see the colored lines. That is just purple, yellow, red. That shows where someone is now and what their step would look like going forward next year in FY27. A number of you are familiar with that process. So moving forward, typically what happens in the budget? Well, this happens. In a spending plan year, we sometimes have to add positions for different needs and what have you. And then this spending year, we only had to add 1.25 positions. These are positions that we want to keep. These are people that are in these roles. And so the school board approves them, but we have enough in personnel that we can add these on the fly in a budget from time to time, and we did so, and that's explained here. That FTE is FTE, I'm sorry, and I apologize on acronyms, let me know, but that is full-time equivalent, so this is obviously a full-time and a part-time job. So and we account for everything in our personnel report. So that's the difference there. These are actuals. Recommending staffing increase. I will show you a slide later about pulling back on all the All-In Virginia money, and I'll talk about that. But of those positions, sometimes you get some grant money, you start a process, you do a pilot, you run it for 3 years and say, wait a minute, this is really working well for us. We want to hang on to this, or most of this, and we incorporate it into our operating budget. So about a third of, is it a third or a fourth? About a fourth of the, a quarter of the All-In Virginia money, we're not getting the money back, but those expenditures we want to put in our operating budget to keep these positions. This is for FTEs that we currently have. So this is not new people. This would be keeping people, but moving it to the operating budget rather than the All-In Virginia budget. And the All-In Virginia budget, I'll probably say it when we talk about it, but Ms. Lamb has been great helping us with this. This was a gift of 2024. General Assembly gave us approximately $3.3 million to use in not 1 year, not 2 years, but 3 years. So we used some of it in FY24, FY25, and FY26. So this is the end of that All-In Virginia money, and we're all happy to see that go. It did give us a chance to try some things out that we want to hang on to. So in any given year, staff requests for new programs, new positions. There's a quick list of the added positions. This adds up to 4.5 positions. Part of that position is converting an already existing FTE from a paraeducator to a teacher, so that's where that half comes in. So this is 4.5 FTEs. The numbers that you see there, when you see the 270K, that's those positions plus their fringe benefits, so that's there as well. Moving forward, other requested increases would be in our career and technical education program. We were very fortunate to have breathing apparatus loaned to us initially to get started, and we're in our second year of the program, but it was on its last leg, so to speak, and nobody at risk, I promise, nobody at risk, but we need to replace some of that equipment. So we've got more robust funding for our CTE programs, not just the firefighter program, some additional instructional materials for our CTE programming. When you're good at what you do, our kids are traveling, they're winning state and national awards, so they're going places, so we need to bolster our budget for going to competitions, and certainly some equipment replacement. So part of CTEC, we were finishing up spending some of the capital on that, so now we need to incorporate that into increasing lines in support of those instruction expenses there and materials expenses. Technology, special education, my bad, got ahead of myself. Special education increases. This is where we contract with third parties, and it's just an increase in those rates. It's often advantageous for us to have a third-party professional provide services to our students rather than having them as a full FTE, full-time salary, full-time benefits, and not quite the caseload. This way, we can come in strategically, use different and various third parties to come in and serve our students within the special ed population. Also, with respect to that, I will share this increase is needed because we have a 3-year average of 8% growth in our special education population. That's annualized. Over 3 years, we're at 8%. So there's a need for the services and a need for increased different costs.
Yes,
So-
for there.
Yes, sir.
I
Yes, sir.
have a question.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Among the 8,100 students, how many are special ed now?
I would say 1,200. There we go.
1,200 of
Yes, sir.
8,100 are
Yes.
special ed. Okay.
Now, that would be an IEP, whether that's speech only or learning disabilities, all spectrum of identified as
Just
special.
to qualify as special ed, 1,200 of 8,100.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Thank you very much.
Yes. Okay, we're on technology, Chromebooks. Chromebooks, a big part of our delivery system with respect to using them, but not allowing them to go home at the elementary level. Middle school and high school students do. On a lesser extent, do the middle school students. But in last year's budget, we used, prior year's budget, prior year, we used VPSA money. That's a Virginia Public School Authority grant program that sits in Virginia that we can pull down technology funds. We used 2 pieces of that last year to get a head start on Chromebooks. This year, we're needing to do that within the operating budget. Some instructional we'll go back to Power School, OpenGov increase, and some fiber and high-speed internet cost increase in terms of those subscriptions. Some additional instructional materials. The VCU RTR program, I will say that is going to be a flow-through grant. We're excited about partnering with VCU. We're hoping that our Future Educators Academy students can take advantage of that and work for us as a part-time paraeducator, funded through the flow-through grant, and then they go to school basically full-time with VCU. It's part online, part in person, and they can get their year 3 and year 4 through VCU at no charge and still work with us. So it's not a part of FEA, our Future Educators Academy, that we as a lab school that we started. But it meshes really well with students coming out of there who, hey, I want to stay in the community and do my VCU experience right here. Now, some of those students will not want that. They want year 3 and 4 to be where? On the campus of a 4-year. And we understand that, totally understand that. But that's, again, some additional success of our FEA program. And then some additional increases for our fine arts and world languages in terms of expenses. And keep in mind, this is not new expenditures. It would be just bolstering some of our lines that are support of these programs. Other categories, additional supplies for maintenance. This is more particularly for non-CIP items that are not 50,000 or more items that we're going to do a floor, those kinds of things to help with small internal and exterior projects to help with some of that. The second item is transportation. There's a software component there of, Mr. Dean likes to say, where's the bus? But that's actually what the parents are saying, where's the bus? There's a software called Here Comes the Bus, and we want to keep working with that so that those subscribers to that can track their bus and see where their students are. So we're working on that process. Also in transportation, this is kind of popular out there right now, but we are adjusting our fuel costs by 3%. Knock on wood, hopefully that's not too low, but we have a 3% increase. And remember, what we pay for fuel is not what the general public pays. We do not have any taxes on what we pay for fuel. So that's in there. Increase to our audit fees, our property insurance, because we're going to, for next school year, have the tower, the 40,000 square feet plus or minus at CMS, that will be occupied. We'll move kids into that. So we've got to put that under coverage. And refresh the Wolpert study. What is that? Well, the Wolpert study will help us with growth, with capacity, and redistricting that will have to occur the following year. So when we get our snapshot of fall membership next year, say September, into September of '26, and as we're going into the next year to open that school, we want to see where people are, where have people landed with the housing that has happened, and this company pulls permits, they look at all the growth, they look at our capacities. They've been very, very helpful. I will say, yes, our growth tracks with what Weldon Cooper has us showing as steady growth, that we're going to be up several hundred students in the next 4 or 5 years. It tracks, but Weldon Cooper doesn't track as well as we can live with in-migration. So that we're keeping that, and we've shared that information on that growth, that growth data with our joint capital planning, and actually we shared that with the County-Town Interaction Committee as well. So we stay on top of that to do that growth study. And that will be fun times when we do redistricting to get, we're not supplanting a school. We're going to take from multiple schools to have students go to Mountain Run Elementary School. And again, to continue to appreciate your support there. 310 is a negative. What's that? That is not using $310,000 out from the state. We used 2 tranches of that last year, so we used $720 because it was available. It hadn't been accessed before, so we doubled up on that last year. Because we can only take a single tranche of that this year, then that has to come back off as that's not revenue this year, if that makes sense. So only 310 we can use in a given year. We had skipped a year because we had used other funds for those. Well, we had skipped a year of buying Chromebooks is mainly the reason why we did not use that in 25. Going further, let's see. Remember my talking about All in Virginia. All in Virginia, that's the 24, 25, and 26 fiscal years. That was about $3.3 million. So all of those, all the expenditures associated with All in Virginia for this fiscal year, going away, except for the ones that we said we were going to add back. So we're adding back about $300,000 of that $1,200. So that's the quarter that Mr. Dean was helping me with there. So last but not least, and then we'll get to CIP. This is what that looks like. It looks like in terms of expenditure summary, recommendations and requirements to include VRS and health insurance and those kinds of things. What we're recommending with a 3% increase, I think, and that's typically close to where you all are with your staff and what your increase may be. So we try to be very reasonable with respect to that increase, that we're consistent with one another as we share those increases. And as we share the health insurance. So those expenditure summaries are there. You see several negatives that represents decreases, and then they are offset on the revenue summary side as those decreases. So all in all, the net you're looking at nearly a $4 million increase, but also a $4 million net increase over the revenue projection. So the revenue shortfall is none. We're not seeking additional appropriation over last year's appropriation for FY27. I said that earlier. That's what the expenditure categories would look like when I talked about the pupil transportation and the insurance and the Wolpert study. Those other things show those smaller groups going up a little bit when you see 7.5 and 11.9, but the rest of it is pretty normal in terms of an increase year over year. This is the expenditure side. And then you've got the revenue slide that I already showed you.
Back
Yes, sir.
on the other one, when I was looking at the students, and it was 8,100, then 8,300, then 8,100, why is the student population going down 27 versus 26 and 25?
When we built that was an estimate of enrollment. And so we have typically used, great question, we use the high water mark of fall membership.
Okay.
And the high water mark of fall membership helps us with staffing, but it becomes a little bit of a disconnect with what we actually get paid on. Because we get paid on, what we're estimating right here, that number, great point, is March ADM, March 31 next year. Okay. March 27 ADM. By March 27, you have lost students. They've moved away. We have a robust program at our high school. We have 60-plus graduates in December. So when those students leave, our ADM declines on that. So we have recently shifted to not looking at the high water mark, but look at what we're more than likely going to be reimbursed on. So that's why we have adjusted to that. We're adjusting to closer to what the state number is. Okay. That makes sense? That great point. Our high water mark was including pre-K, probably 8,300 kids, yes. But by the time you get to March of '26, that ADM has dropped. ADM does not include the pre-K students that we have 150, 160 of. So,
So
great
what would
question.
like our number be right now? Because we're in March of '26.
Yes, we're right on the estimate. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes.
So if we're 8150 this year, and we're estimating 81 next year? Okay,
What we're estimating 81, sir, because that's the re-benchmarking number that the state has given.
okay.
And again, I think we'll be higher than that. And
So
you
do
don't
I.
want to be arbitrarily inflated, because when that money doesn't come in, your enrollment's not in, so you're running a deficit month after month,
It
right?
just looked a little conservative
Right.
to me.
We're not losing students in that regard, but it's a great question. But we're shifting to using what the state is saying. The state across the Commonwealth at re-benchmarking lowered those levels. Weldon Cooper has us. Hang on one second, great statement. Do I have that? I have it here somewhere. Where's my Weldon Cooper number?
Sorry, I didn't mean to sidetrack us.
No, you're good. Not that page. Well, we're right on the number for Weldon Cooper. Oh, there we go, yes. Weldon Cooper is 8199 for next year. We're budgeting 8100. So that's safe. And the state uses Weldon Cooper numbers. The next year is 8222, 8319, 8430, and then 8529. So 5 years out, we're nearly 350 students higher. Now, keep in mind, Weldon Cooper traditionally does, as like I've already said this, mainly birth rate. So that's what they're looking at. We have that combination of birth rate analysis plus growth. And we all know together a little bit about growth right now, so, right. Thank you, sir. I did have these written down, just can't find them right now. Okay,
Chairman?
so, yes, sir.
You'd mentioned earlier that the state is no longer funding this or that. How much year over year did you lose in funding from the state by not funding whatever it is they stopped funding?
Yes, sir. Wrong slide. Here we go, right here.
Was it just one item that they
Yes, sir.
stopped?
Yes, sir, yeah. It was essentially a grant. So I will say this way, based on our composite index, state funding, I'm gonna kind of hold my breath when I say this, doesn't increase. It typically increases. Like the projection that we have now. The governor's budget was $4+ million higher. This is $5.7 million. And the House version is nearly $10 million higher than last year. We're not submitting that because we don't think that's going to fly. But what I'm talking about of not receiving would be that amount right there that the state in one-time money said, hey, in FY24, we have this money. We're going to give school divisions this amount of appropriation to do certain things with. Well, it came with strings attached. It didn't come with matching dollars. It didn't come with a match. But it came in FY24. Ms. Lamb recalls this fondly because it was so much fun to deal with. In FY24, they gave us $3.3 million in about October to use for the next 3 years. So we started spending some of that down in FY24. We spent some of it down in FY25, finishing the spend down here. So the ending of it is, I would use the term, it's a Virginia grant. Our regular base funding, based on our SOQ counts, based on composite index, that is steady. So state funding will not go back. But it is a great question because the state funds us, the driver for state funding is enrollment. And so that's why, as Weldon Cooper just dropped numbers this week, actually, and was shared with finance directors. Culpeper County is one of the few counties that over the next 4 or 5 years is continuing to grow. If you look at Weldon Cooper numbers, many localities are in decline. So that's not us, and that's a good thing. But so if you think that, if you that's the concept, we're funded per pupil, then that's going to continue to increase. But great question. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, in terms of where we are with, I'll just keep going, how's that? Ms. Harris asked that we have the CIP here, and I'm going to pause just for a second, get to my cheat sheet on this. And as you heard earlier today, we presented these items, as did the other departments, to the Planning Commission, as required by law. So we ran through this with the Planning Commission. And, yeah, when the school system gets $87 million from the state to do what we do, plus your help, and your other departments, they don't have the same kind of funding formula, right? So we're a different animal, right? We're also a different animal with respect to CIP because of our great working relationship in the past. And I also would say because of having a CIP, as was mentioned when you were talking about grants earlier today, we had a lot of items on the CIP that when that COVID money, ESSER money came in, little Culpeper County Public Schools took advantage of that, and we received over $20 million in grants. What that ended up doing was freeing up prior appropriations of projects. We think this thing is going to cost this. Well, we did it through the HVAC grant, and that HVAC appropriate that we had for this purpose, we could repurpose it for something else, and you all have been wonderful about that. So having said that, just kind of a reminder, on this screen, if you look at the funding category, what is that? Not made up. And we are unique in the CIP world that you see with this. We have items that are that are county, it's on you guys, and it's debt service, right? Or it comes from carryover, either underspent expenditures, excess revenue. We get to the end of the year, this is the number, this is the audited number. That reverts to the county by law, it reverts to you. You all have always been very gracious to have that come back to the schools, not in an operational way. You've taken that operational savings, you didn't burn it in operations, yet we're going to go invest it and turn it into a capital asset, which I think is super smart. It's a great move for you guys, a great move for us. So at any rate, we have carryover funds, and then what in the world is this category of transfer? That would be projects that we were unrealized or we funded in a different way that sat there so we can shuffle that and ask permission to transfer those funds from previously appropriated turn back money. Because all of this starts with turn back money, except for the first 3 or 4, right? When you've got CMS renovation, Mountain Run Elementary School. Sims Drive is an estimate. We had a prior appropriation in there of $915,000. We have spent some of that down doing the studies out there. Appreciate your heavy lifting on that. Appreciate the grant on that. Thank you all for coming to that we received $850,000 towards that project for Sims Drive extension. So that's fantastic. So you see how that's debt funded, and the estimate on elementary school number 8 is sitting out there. Well, I'll get to that in a second. So when you come down that list, when you look at next year, as was said earlier today, focus on 27. On 27, what we can do in 27, technically you've acted on that because from that 50,000 of safety upgrades down to the 225 on White Fleet, that's all coming from transfer funds, not new money, not new cash. Something that we had prior appropriation for, repurposed for, and at your last board meeting, you acted on that and said we can do that. What's new this year on the turnback side is placing more money onto the Emerald Hill heat pump and controls. That's turning out to be a more expensive project. Haven't started it, but our estimates are we did not have enough in there, so we're applying $1.2 million of turnback to that. And because of these other projects being taken care of, all the way back to COVID times, we created with previous administration and your support the category of other projects. So when something comes in under, we finish it, we can put that excess in here and use it later. So those are the 3 truly new, those are the 2 new items, with the 1.2 being a total estimate on what might have to be needed for borrowing for debt service with respect to Sims Drive. So that's really quick on the CIP. I will say, yes, it does serve us well to put things out in outlying years to include but not limited to, it was mentioned today, we have the possibility of elementary school number 8. It's sitting there. Doesn't mean it's imminently happening, but the fact that it's on the plan, that will help us together in the future if that needs to happen. We had for a while sitting there, we had, forget the number, $1 million or so to do LED internal lighting. There is $1 million. Well, no. We're not going to do that once in a year. Let's do a chunk of schools each year to upgrade the LED lighting. And we're going to do that over the next 5 years to bring our schools up to LED lighting. And this is one of the few investments that we will get an ROI on because we will pay less in our utility bills by having this done. So just a quick roll through that, but I'm happy to answer any questions on the CIP, which leads me to the next steps, and they're your next steps. But again, happy to answer any questions you may have. I'm sorry, I'll go back. Any place you need me to go.
Questions? Thank you very much, Dr. Brads. You've quieted the audience and the board.
I apologize if I may go back. Let's see. Well, I'll just kind of narrate. Sir?
I didn't hear any wait for it.
Oh, no. This is the wait for it. The wait for it is, I mentioned we don't have a state budget. And I've never said this before. The House and the Senate are $1 billion apart. That's a billion with a B. And you probably know why they're $1 billion apart. Now, I did say the House is better for us than the Senate, but it's not reasonable. They're not $1 billion apart because of K-12 funding. They're $1 billion apart because of what they're thinking about with respect to sales and use tax at the state level on data centers. Now, I know you know that, so we're paying attention to that as well, because does that change something on your end? I'm just a school superintendent. I don't think so. I think the state's trying to leverage. They are trying to remove the exemption much earlier than the 2035 date that was out there.
Right.
The Senate wants to remove it January 2027. The House doesn't want to change 2035, but they want to change some of the environmental items with respect to that. And Mr. Underwood, I know you're on top of that. But I have never seen a budget where the governor's budget, the Senate, and the House were actually that far apart. And it not just affects K-12, but it certainly affects what we're planning. But appreciate what you all do in support of Culpeper County Public Schools. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. All right, do we have any other comments or business? If not, a motion to adjourn. I didn't make one, I was looking for one. So moved.